All right. So next, we talk about engagement. And you see a picture of a wolf and a raven. And you might not know it, but ravens and wolves are collaborating, hunting prey. So when you are looking for wolves, you have to look in the air and look for ravens. Why? Ravens are looking for prey, and wolves will follow. Basically, ravens and wolves are collaborating, and they're exchanging also kind of communication with the vocal ways like howling to each other. So we are a publishing company, Supply Chain Media. So we do a lot about engagement and publications. So basically, we want to talk about how we do that. With me, I have Nicole. Nicole is my colleague, responsible for marketing and also for business development. And Nicole, you're going to explain, what we have doing on the publication and what the supply chain people are reading.
Yes, I want to try to align how people consume our content and how they do it. So what types of content do they consume and where do they consume it?
Okay, yeah, maybe in this slide we have an overview and maybe you can explain it. What are they reading? What is the top 10 of content supply chain professionals have been read last year?
Yeah, we have seen in the past 60 minutes or so that we have some different ways of visualization complex matter. The ecosystem that you just explained is one visualization that we created, but we have co-created 51 more in 2022. And to have a better understanding of what supply chain professionals do with it, we made a top 10 list of the best downloaded pieces of content. And you see it in the sheet. And it speaks for itself that the key topics like sustainability, digitalization, and scenario building are downloaded more than others. But what we also clearly see in this list is that visualizations score way above average compared to white papers or any other written text.
So basically the visualization help to get a better grasp of a certain topic, and that's the reason why it's better read than normal text, plain text.
Definitely, definitely. And this is all available on the website of Supply Chain Movement as gated content.
Yeah.
And all the gated content together that we have created in 2022 was downloaded by over 11,000 supply chain professionals all over the world.
Yeah, and it's good to know. And I also experienced that some years ago. I had a conversation with a VP supply chain at L'Oreal, and she showed me a whole stack of downloaded checklists, mind maps, and roadmaps. And she said we are downloading each kind of topic, what you have been published as a first starter of a project. And and then we scribble stuff around, and then we scan it, and we have a Kickstarter to have an early start and a quicker start of our project. And maybe you can also explain where this content has been read all over the world.
Yeah, like I said, it's downloaded on our international website of Supply Chain Movement. And our editorial team that is creating or co-creating all this content has a focus on the European supply chain, but we definitely see that the European supply chain provides a blueprint for supply chains all around the world. And especially in 2020, when the lockdowns during the pandemic happened, and now also with the Russian invasion in Ukraine, we see that our audience is not just based in Europe anymore, but also in APAC and in the Americas. So the geographical locations of our downloads are now, global actually.
And if you look at the slide, I think that the majority is Western Europe, I would say, and US and Canada, and the rest is APAC and Australia, something like that.
Yeah, and I think it also shows that our organization is based in the Netherlands, so that explains for us that our biggest audience is in the Netherlands as well. We have an exclusively publication for Dutch audience in the Dutch language, so we have a better brand awareness here in the Netherlands than in other locations.
And then personally, I claim that the Dutch in supply chain are very well positioned because they speak English and they have a good knowledge of supply chain. And also that's the reason why I see a lot of Dutch expats all around the world in supply chain functions in a higher level. So that's also what I see. Of course, what we see in the last 2 years, huge growth of online viewers and readers on our channels, probably because of the lockdown. But maybe you can tell me something about print. Is print still alive, or what's the status of print?
Yeah, I think our viewers now are both supply chain professionals as well as marketeers from supply chain vendors and supply chain vendors and themselves also here in the studio. And I'm having daily conversation with both ends of the table, so as well the practitioners as the vendors. And a lot of the supply chain directors and managers that I talk with, they read our printed magazine. And in another conversation with supply chain vendors, they ask me all the time, is print dead? But I would definitely say print is not dead, and neither is print advertising. And what I try to do, preparing for this conversation that we have, is look for research, if there is any supporting research, and there's a lot, and that surprised me. So yeah, I'm more confident to say that the print isn't dead, and print advertising should definitely be a part of the marketing mix. And I found an interesting research of finances online, and I have to check the numbers so I state them right. But they did a research about reading behavior of printing ads versus digital ads. Mm-hmm. And they saw that print ads require 21% less cognitive effort to process, and they generate 77% brand recall over only 46% brand recall of digital ads. So that's a really significant differ. And in our own research, we found that 80% of marketeers at supply chain vendors, they try to get more brand recognition through digital ads, mostly on Google advertising and LinkedIn advertising. And I found in another research of Ubiquity, who's an independent data analysis on media investment, that by doing so, those marketeers are still funding spammy websites and disinformation. And in a time where we all are calling fake news, that was really surprising to me. And Ubiquity found in that research, and I will quote them, the websites that are made for advertising can not only be potentially an undesirable environment for your ads, but they are also more likely to advertising fraud. They give you the illusion of reach when it's not actual reach, and their questionable impressions of the website are potentially non-human. So yeah, as a marketeer, I was quite surprised by that we are still funding websites like those. So yeah, even though we see a very increase in the investments of online advertising, compared to 2020, we luckily see an increase of advertisement in print magazines again.
Yeah, and I also personally see some website with a lot of Google ads, and it's it's quite disturbing to watch and to go through, and maybe that is also adding to the online fatigue. And that's also explaining why people more and more want to pick up a book or a magazine in print and read it at home, especially. And of course, during lockdown, we saw a shift from magazines being sent to the office to their homes, and that also raised a lot of subscriptions on a home-based matter. And on the other hand, we see a shift from online reading more to an online reading, and that's also the reason why we experimented with making supply chain movement available as a PDF downloadable. And you see that a lot of people are still printing it because then they can read it way better. Next, what is it about the reading behavior, print versus online?
Yes, because the numbers that we spoke about so far are just regarding advertising, so visuals. And we haven't talked about written content yet. And of course, a lot of people in general struggle with creating content themselves. What is the issue that you really want to talk about? And when we create content, we mostly do it in written form. So the same research of finances online that I quoted before found in that same research that people who read printed publications spend over 20 minutes reading that, compared to less than 5 minutes reading time for online digital news sites. So we process more and we process it more easily. So that's a big argument to have in mind when you are printing written content. And if you are a supply chain marketeer, I would definitely say that print should be in your marketing mix, taking all these statements into consideration and combine it, of course, with digital ads.
Yeah. And as editor-in-chief and publisher of Supply Chain Movement, I totally agree that, longer articles, say 6 pages, is hardly being read online. And, so I see that people want these articles because they want their deep knowledge and they want a better explanation than a fluffy, superficial stuff online. So that's why we still are publishing 6 or 8 pages as article in a magazine, but not online. And finally, how do supply chain vendors get in contact with their audience, with the supply chain professionals?
Yeah, they do it in different ways, and we have those questions a lot, actually daily. How do I get more leads? But I think it's similar to what Erik just explained. You first start crawling before you start running. So you first have in your marketing AIDA model, start with awareness, then interest, and then desire before you can get into lead generation. So taking the assumption that you have done the steps before, you are ready for action, and you have to know where do your target audience drop their contact details. How do I get in touch with supply chain practitioners? And in our research that we did by ourselves among supply chain marketeers, we see a decrease of digital events, and we see an increase in physical events. And we also see that the marketeers invest in gated content, so a white paper or visualization, where the supply chain practitioners need to put in their contact details. And 60% of those marketeers, they invest in Google Ads and LinkedIn advertising for lead generation. And that's surprising, I think. And to those, I would definitely recommend to read the research of Finances Online, because in conclusion, they say that digital campaigns are 400% more effective when combining them with print advertising.
And what I also see that, when we are publishing gated content like co-created mind maps or checklists on our website, it's way more effective than when it's been published at the own site where we created with. Why? Because Supply Chain Movement provides a more independent environment, and people expect what to get from us in co-creation with a lot of partners. So that's also something to remind. And also what I read from the financials from Facebook and Google, they are expecting a decrease in spending on Google and LinkedIn ads because of market uncertainty, and also about the higher cost of the Google AdWords and LinkedIn campaigns. Finally, about the on-location event. So what's happening on that event business side?
Yeah, we saw in our own research, and that was kind of what we have expected, that the digital conferences are decreasing and the physical events are increasing again, but that was in comparison to 2020, where we had the lockdowns and the pandemic. But what was interesting to see is that the number of events we are attending to now are decreasing, meaning, in my opinion, we are cherry picking. We are more critically thinking about, is it worth my time? Is it worth my money? Is it worth the environment to attend an event to in person? So I think that's the reason why we are attending less events than we did before.
So yeah, Supply Chain Media, we are going to less events with our own booth and with that kind of thing. And also as a trend watcher, I'm spending less time abroad going to a conference like pre-COVID. But I think also both the vendors and the professionals are aware that some things could be done online with Zoom meetings and broadcasts like this. So that's a new hybrid world. But then again, people want to rejoin and get together face to face again. Okay, thanks for your explanation. There will be more data available online. But the final part is, do the marketeers of supply chain vendors have a strategy, a sound strategy?
Yeah, we asked that in the research as well, because we have a lot of conversation with marketeers. They all want more leads, and no matter how many leads they get, they always want more. The other side, the practitioners, they already have a lot of knowledge. They keep downloading a lot of content, but they still need more knowledge to optimize their supply chains. So in the question, what hurdles are there and how do you need to improve? What are the reasons you are not achieving what you want to achieve right now? We saw some different arguments. One of them, and a lot of marketeers answered that, was that they had no sound marketing strategy. It was also mentioned a lot that there was insufficient budget for marketing, and also a lot of marketeers blaming sales for insufficient following up of sales qualified leads. On the other side of the table, I think that supply chain professionals are more busy than ever with their daily business, so they have less time to talk to vendors. And I think overall, all the people really suffer from a serious information overload. And that comes back, I think, full cycle where we started. I think all marketeers should also go back to the drawing board now in a post-pandemic world and start visualizing all the channels, all the platforms we use and how they interact with each other to find the best way to reach the supply chain practitioners.
And still, I totally agree with what you're saying in the research. I still say, you know, when you want to get a brain position, you know, say you want to have, you want to create a brain position about store shippers, to get a neural path in your brain, you need to have heard the story about store shippers at least 6 or 7 times in different ways, in different stages, and in different manners to get it stick in your brain to such an extent that you can explain to your colleague why you have to look into the proposition of store shippers. So I have to explain again and again that, you know, bombarding the same message over and over again is not enough. You have to have 6, 7 contact points in different ways, in different manners, and hopefully with some visualization, because a picture says more than 1,000 words. So that's the reason why you have to come up with a sound strategy and map it out and come with some clear follow-up. Thanks for your explanation.